Well, good Monday morning to you, and welcome to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition, located on Cowan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. It's a nice, chilly morning out there.
Feels good.
Brisk.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Feels good to me.
It's right. When you have nothing up there, it's really, really chilly. But let you know our phone lines are open now, 896-0713, 800-349-0713. You can call in a question about our topic of the day or any question that you may have about something maybe we spoke of recently. You didn't get a phone call in. You can ask the doctors directly, or you can pass the question on to our operator, and they will pass the question along to us. Fatty liver. What exactly is fatty liver?
Well, it's when your liver starts
fat?
it starts collecting fat and getting what we call an infiltration of fat, excess fat. And of course, then it gets sluggish, doesn't work like it should. And you know, it comes from a lot of different reasons. You know, some of the statistics, and we were looking at those the other day, you know, these healthcare statistics are about as hard to come by as the code to the atomic bomb, okay? I mean, they're like 2002,
I don't know, nowadays any country can just about get that.
That's probably true. We could probably get somebody to hack that. But coming up with these stats are kind of tough, but some of the latest statistics show us that the fatty liver problem is the fastest growing chronic condition that we have. And it comes from things like your insulin resistance, your prediabetes, your diabetes, overweight, obesity, those kind of things. And the liver has to process that fat first, and things that turn to fat, like sugar and especially...
Right, because everybody kind of thinks fatty liver has to be from eating fat, and that's not actually true.
It's actually sugar.
It's sugar that does it, and they've
Our
shown
old friend
that
sugar.
as people have higher triglycerides, the triglycerides definitely lead to fatty liver.
Yeah, because when you consume something like table sugar, and I think we've talked about this before, but you know, that white stuff that you would put in your coffee if you dared, 50% of that is glucose, and 50% of it is fructose. Now, the glucose our body can use because if you go to the doctor and they check your blood, they're checking your glucose. So that's readily available. Now, that fructose has to be converted into something called a triglyceride, and before it can actually be used. So the liver has to take that fructose, process it into a triglyceride, and then it stores it. Because it says, well, you know, we don't need it right now.
Yeah, if you don't use it.
Yeah, if you don't use it.
And if you're insulin resistant, one thing that insulin does, everybody knows that insulin controls sugar, but another thing that insulin does is carry triglycerides into the cells.
Right.
Well, when the cells start getting resistant to the insulin, which does happen before you turn diabetic, it actually is usually a pre-diabetes state. You stop carrying those triglycerides into the cells, so the triglycerides start building up in the blood. And when you draw blood on somebody, you can almost see, you can shake the tube of blood and it's just fat.
You can see
Really?
It's amazing.
Oh,
I mean, because sometimes
amazing.
you don't even have to do the test. You can just look at somebody's blood and say, oh gosh, their triglycerides are going to be sky high. And when you take that fat in the blood and you filter it through the liver, I always tell people what happens when you pour bacon grease through a coffee filter.
Kind of gets clogged up.
Gets clogged up.
I guess this is where the high cholesterol stuff comes in.
Well, yeah, because
High cholesterol can affect it also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cholesterol,
Yep.
I mean, the VLDL, which is a very low density lipoprotein, is the carrier for that triglyceride. And of course, you know, as the triglycerides go up because you can't use them, then, you know, the VLDLs go up and of course the LDLs go up and so on. So yeah, it's a cascade kind of a thing going on there. Now, the sad part about this is somewhere around close to 100 million people or more in the United States is either insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, or diabetic. And at least they say, the statistics say, about 80% of those probably got fatty liver.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
huge. I mean,
it's huge.
we're even seeing it.
And I'm sure that Mississippi is
It
way
is.
up on the top of the
We
list.
do see a lot of it. And the bad thing is people don't really understand it. That's one reason we wanted to do a show, because you think fatty liver, okay, well, it's eating fat and that's it. Well, that's not true. It's actually eating sugar, getting
And
insulin
carbohydrates,
resistant, getting metabolic syndrome, getting some of those pre-diabetes, and then in turn, it's causing the fatty liver.
Well, that's why we talk so many times about, you know, you need to cut out the sugars,
Yes.
cut out the bread,
Right.
and the white stuff.
Well, it no matter what color it is, anything that turns to sugar, you know, your wheat, for instance, your grains, corn, all those things, they turn to sugar really fast. And, of course, the body has to process that. And that's where, the high fructose corn syrup is especially a bad one.
Okay, I think we have a question.
Oh, I think we got a question.
What's the difference between an alcoholic and non-alcoholic fatty liver?
Well, think about it. An alcoholic fatty liver is coming from excessive use of alcohol. Now,
Which turns into sugar.
Well,
Right,
no,
which is
triglycerides.
Yeah.
Triglyceride. Yeah.
Here's the thing about it. Your fructose that we talked about a little earlier, when the liver processes it, it processes it very similar chemical process as alcohol. So when you consume too much alcohol over a sustained period of time, I mean, if you have too much to drink tonight, no, you're not going to get fatty liver. But if you do that every day, over a period of time, yeah, you will.
You do cause cirrhosis.
Right.
And the fatty liver can turn into cirrhosis also. Now, that's another thing people need to realize. A lot of people say, oh, I have fatty liver, it's not causing any problems, so it's no big deal. Well,
Yeah.
down the road, and the longer that you have that, it can turn. Now, the problem is the only way you know that for sure is a liver biopsy, which is a very,
Yeah.
it's an invasive procedure.
Right.
What we see in lab work, and they say that this is one reason why they think there's way more of the fatty liver than we know, is they've actually had evidence on testing that people have fatty liver that do not have elevated liver enzymes yet. Now, of course, that's what we see in lab work. Once they elevate, then you start looking with ultrasound and things like that for fatty liver. But they're saying that you can actually have fatty liver and not have elevated enzymes yet, but it's usually in the early stages. The scary thing is we are actually seeing it in the kids that we're testing. And it can be even the thin kids. It does not have to be the overweight kids. I mean, we have seen, I would say about half of all the teenagers that we've done blood work on actually are pre-diabetic.
All right, give us a call about your liver or anything else. We're here to talk to you at 896-0713, 800-349-0713. And the doctors will expound a little bit more about kids and their fatty livers when we come back. And welcome back. Our phone lines are open at 896-0713, 800-349-0713. It's our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. Leslie from Loosedale asked, what is a symptom of fatty liver? Are there any exercises to help? And can you reverse damage from fatty liver?
Let's see. Yeah. Now, let's start with the first one, symptoms.
Okay.
There may not be any.
In the early stages.
Early stages, there's really not, until it gets into those later stages.
I find a lot of people get sluggish. I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably complain of fatigue more than anything, which can be so many different things. But when that liver is not detoxifying properly because it does have fat in it, you may have a little toxic buildup, and you may just feel a little sluggish and not feel well in the early stages. Of course, late stages of any liver disease have extreme symptoms.
Right. Now, exercise, any exercise
Definitely,
will help.
any exercise will
I mean,
help.
anytime you're burning off excess energy, that's going to help. Now, you talked about reversing the damage. It depends on how far the damage goes, because this non-alcoholic fatty liver thing can turn into something called NASH, N-A-S-H, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. That's a big word, and at that point, you're starting to get real close to what we call cirrhosis. Not a good place to be. Once you get those infiltrates in there and that cirrhosis starts setting in, boy, that's tough to turn that around.
Right, but you can in the early stages.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. People come in, we see the elevated liver enzymes, we'll send them to their doctor, they have the testing, yeah, it's fatty liver. We know it is. They change their diet, they do exercise. Exercise definitely helps, because exercise helps insulin resistance and the metabolic syndrome, which is the cause of it. So we see that, and then we can see people where their enzymes get completely normal. But usually, if they're overweight, it takes losing weight.
Yeah.
But we are seeing thin people with it now. We're seeing really thin, thin people. But those really thin people that we're seeing with it do have high triglycerides. So they're still metabolic syndrome, but yet, they're thin. And it can happen. People are starting to think, people think, well, I'm thin, I can eat what I want. That is absolutely not true.
I wish it were true.
Yeah, absolutely not true.
I wish it were true.
Yeah. Agnes from Biloxi is on the phone. Go ahead. And what's your question, Agnes?
Well, I was just wondering, when I was diagnosed with a liver condition, they never could come to a determination as to why I got it, because I wasn't a drinker. I didn't do drugs.
Right.
I didn't do any of those things. And I'm on a list now. My liver apparently just just went bad, and we never could find out why. They did all kinds of tests.
There's a lot of other liver problems too that actually show up, especially we live in a toxic world. And a lot of medications can even affect the liver. So we've seen over the years where it might have even been a medication you took, and sometimes it don't take taking it long. I've seen before where a certain medication, if it affects the liver, it can do it within a week in that person if your liver is very sensitive. Yeah.
And here's the thing about even this fatty liver thing we're talking about, Agnes. You know, if you go, there's some lists out there of medications that can actually cause damage to the liver, like Janine was saying. And if you start having damage to the liver, now it can't process properly, and so something like the fatty liver takes over a lot faster because it can't process, and it starts having, you know, that fatty buildup. And again, the fat is not from eating fat.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of the best things for the fatty liver
is fish oil.
Fish oil. Fat.
Which is fat. But you know, with liver problems, sometimes they can't determine medicine is not an exact science, unfortunately. So sometimes they can't pinpoint exactly what did it, but the good thing is you're on the list, and hopefully you'll get you a liver soon.
Yes.
So, I mean, it just gets to the point where I guess your only option is to get a liver transplant.
Yeah.
In extreme cases.
In extreme cases,
I mean, that's pretty much when you start having liver failure due to it, which is definitely, we're talking about more, you know, we see, of course, the early stages in a lot of people because we do a lot of lab work.
Right.
And we do find the very early stages,
You know,
which is where you can turn it around, and that's what we want to stress. If you've been told you have a fatty liver, don't wait until it gets severe. Do something about it.
A caller asked, what causes primary biliary cirrhosis of the liver? Wasn't sure about that. So let the doctors pronounce that one. Okay, what causes primary biliary sclerosis of the liver?
A lot of things.
It could be multiple things.
Multiple things. It could be, you know, it could be
What is
viral
it?
things. For instance, well, when you look at cirrhosis and sclerosis, and I think they're talking about the biliary sclerosis. The biliary tree is where the bile is accumulated in the liver and winds up and goes to the gallbladder, and then on back into the digestive system as bile salts and so on. Now that biliary tree, anything can damage it. Viruses, for instance, the various hepatitis viruses and they're known, even Hep C, especially with genotype 3, I think it is. That's one that's really kind of nasty for things like that. But you know, anything that can do that, Hep A, Hep B, all those things, you know, other things that can damage it. And so it's a lot of things can cause that.
And sometimes they don't know the cause.
And
Again,
sometimes,
just like
Agnes, they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're throwing their hands up and saying, we don't know. It's damaged. We just don't know what caused it. You know?
But that's what we wanted to stress today is when people were told, you don't know how many people come in, they've already been told by their doctors they have fatty liver, and they're not really doing anything about it. They're just told, we have fatty liver, we're going to watch it. Well, I say you don't want to watch it until it gets to be a problem. Definitely, no question, all the research says changing the diet and exercise.
You got to reduce the caloric input.
Yep, it's going to be a part of it.
Increase exercise. You got to lose weight. I mean, that's the number one thing.
If you're overweight, you have to lose weight.
Yeah.
And thin people that have it, they're going to lose weight too. I have men complain that they're getting too skinny, and I'm like, you know what? To get rid of that fatty liver, you're going to have to be, because in your body you lay fat down in your organs. You don't lay it down on the outside, you lay it down on the inside. You have to do something about it.
And there you go.
So being thin is not the worst thing in the world. But I do have some men. It's always men that complain. Not
Really?
women. Yes.
Yeah.
Men always say, I'm getting too skinny.
Yeah, seriously. The women seem to never bother them to get too skinny. You know, I guess they say that you can't be too skinny and too rich, right? So females go right along with that. But the guys think, well, wait a minute, I'm losing too much weight here. And you know, in all honesty,
I always say if you're eating healthy and you're not skipping meals, I mean, you're eating and you're eating healthy and eating what you want. If your body loses weight because of that, well, then your body is going to hit an equilibrium. You're going to get to the weight you should be. And so, you know, if you lose a little weight, it's not going to hurt you.
Right.
In most cases.
And well, yeah, and it can
in most cases,
help you in the long run.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. It's the one thing that's actually been shown to increase longevity.
Is a caloric restricted diet.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. People eat too much. I mean, as a whole, even if they eat the right foods, some people eat too much of it.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I guess it's kind of like the days when we sat down to dinner with our families and everything. You know, you ate as much as you could, and it seemed like the more you ate and stuffed yourself, it was almost like that's the way, you know, you complimented the chef, or like overseas in different countries. I mean, if you let out a big belch after dinner, you know, that's a way of saying, oh, that was awesome, that was great. That's a compliment to the chef. But you know, nowadays, I mean, the best thing to do, eat until you're satisfied.
Satisfied
Until
until
you're
full.
satisfied. And
Right.
then
Stop.
Then you got leftovers. Stay tuned.
That's true.
Yeah. Stay tuned for today's specials and more of your calls. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. It's our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. And welcome back. It's our final segment this morning of our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition. They're located on Cowan Road in Gulfport South of Pass Road. They are open today from 10 till 5. We'll say Monday through Friday, 10 to 5. Saturdays, 11 to 2. And the doctor's there from on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
Right.
Dr. Mays is there on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Right.
So, and all week long, got a great crew of people there. Chris from Hattiesburg asks, I have elevated liver function but no other symptoms. Should I be concerned?
Yeah,
Yes.
now's the time to be concerned.
Now's the time, like we said, don't wait until it gets worse.
Yeah.
The liver enzymes don't elevate for no reason. So there's something going on. There has to be a little bit of damage to the liver to elevate those enzymes. So now's the time to start with no symptoms.
Now, on those enzymes, let me talk about that for just a minute. We don't know whether Chris was male or female, but if you're a
Male.
a male?
Yes.
Okay. If you're a male and your liver ALT enzyme is over 30, then you probably have fatty, the beginning stages at least, of fatty liver. If you're a female, if it's over 20, they're starting to show signs of that fatty liver.
Now, not all elevated liver enzymes are fatty liver.
No.
We did want to, stress
stress
that. There
that.
can be other things, but that's the most common thing that we're seeing today because of the insulin resistance.
Right.
And like we talked about, changing the diet and exercise are two things you can do, but we also have some supplements that are used for fatty liver. Now, I always tell people, you can take all the pills you want, but if you don't change your lifestyle, it's probably not going to work. There's things that help you along,
Right.
but it doesn't replace changing the diet and exercise. And those things, two of them are our specials this week.
Yeah.
And one of them is called Berberine Max. Berberine Max is used, it can even be used for blood sugar. It helps the insulin resistance. And it has also been shown to lower the lipids as well. Now the sunflower lecithin is a fat emulsifier. So it breaks down fat into smaller particles. So even if you have more fat and it's in smaller particles, it's not as likely to get clogged up in the liver.
Yeah. It helps you use it better, for sure. So those are two things.
Those are two
like I say,
things.
one of the biggies is that
Fish oil.
insulin resistance. And of course, the other thing we talked about, fish oil too. We just happen to have these two things, the lecithin capsules and the berberine max on special this week. Because those are two things that are probably
But another
good for
thing that a
anybody
lot of the
stuff down
research says is vitamin E.
Yeah.
And vitamin E is also a fat. So the healthy fats can help treat the fatty liver.
Which sounds counterintuitive,
Right.
but it's right.
And even on the fish oil, we definitely know that a high enough strength of fish oil, now you have to be a therapeutic strength, can lower triglycerides. And you lower those triglycerides is the first step to helping.
Well, vitamin E is usually found in what, beef liver, and is it?
all kinds of
It's
liver
all
insulin,
kind of foods,
It's
yeah.
in a lot of different foods. It really is. But and it's just one of those things that definitely helps. It's a great antioxidant. So it helps protect by the antioxidant.
And another
properties.
antioxidant is N-acetylcysteine, which N-acetylcysteine has been shown to help liver detoxification anyway. It's what's used if you have a Tylenol overdose.
Yeah.
They use NAC,
Really?
even,
Yeah,
even
they
in the
give you
hospital
NAC.
setting,
Right.
they use N-acetylcysteine for a Tylenol overdose. So it's really good for the liver. So there's a
Sure
lot
is.
of things for the liver.
Right.
Now people think of the milk thistle and the turmeric and the liver detox products. It's hard to detoxify the liver while it still has fat in it. So we always stress you want to get rid of the fatty liver first before trying to detoxify the liver. Because if you try to push detoxification and the liver can't detoxify, well then it can actually make it worse.
Well, what food and drink are good for your liver?
Water.
Water's
Water's
biggie.
a good drink.
Yeah.
And food would be any of your real food, real unprocessed
Right.
foods, your fresh vegetables.
Notice I said fresh vegetables. We're
Yeah.
not the ones
Right.
that, we talk about this again all the time. Don't go buy the stuff in the cans. If you can, like you always say, if you stay around the perimeter,
Yeah, the perimeter of the grocery store. That's
grocery
it.
store,
And
like
you
you're-
want a real food diet.
And seafood's really good for it. The fish.
Yeah, the fatty fish.
The fatty
we've got
fish.
plenty of that around.
We
here.
do.
We do. The tuna, the salmon, and so on and so forth. The fatty fish are really good for this. Even sardines.
and all
So-
your real bright colors, because
Right.
when we talk about antioxidants, anything with really bright colors, whether it be your dark greens or oranges or yellows or
Yeah.
all your vegetables in bright colors. Now in the fruit is good to a point. If you have those high triglycerides, the problem is fruit has the fructose, which is actually going to increase the triglycerides, which is going to make the problem worse if you're already at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Barbara from Columbia is on the phone with us. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you, Barbara?
Just fine. I was wondering about what they had just said about the vitamin E.
Uh-huh.
And I took a picture of that berberine mac
Right.
that they were talking about.
Uh-huh.
And can you kind of go over that just a little bit, because it's kind of hard for me to catch up with what y'all were talking about, the vitamin E and stuff.
Okay. The berberine, you said, and the berberine. Vitamin E is just something that the research has shown to help with fatty liver. So that's something that they have a lot of research on. And the berberine, what it does, we use it in the pre-diabetes, and it's even been shown to help metformin work even in the diabetes. So there's a lot of research on berberine, and even some double-blind studies where they've looked at it compared to metformin, which is for your diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Insulin resistance.
So
right.
it's going to help more of the insulin resistance. And they know that the insulin resistance and the metabolic syndrome is the biggest cause for fatty liver.
Okay. Lindy from Pass Christian. Good morning, Lindy.
Good morning.
You have a question for the doctors?
I do. I am wondering about nutrition and supplements for people with COPD.
Okay. We got really...
Well,
we have a few.
NAC
The
that
we just talked
yeah.
about for the liver is great also because it breaks up the mucus in the lungs. And of course, anybody with COPD has usually a problem with the mucus getting thick. And another thing we have is called dimethylglycine, or DMG. DMG is increases oxygen carrying capability. And we have many people that come in and calls it their breathing pills because they say when they take it, they can breathe better. So we have a lot of people that just call it their breathing pills, but DMG is so safe you can give it to a day-old baby is the good thing about DMG.
Yeah.
Wow.
And NAC is good not only for the COPD, but as stated before, it's a great antioxidant.
It is.
And it is very good for the liver itself, too.
All right. Thanks, Lindy. Paul from Pascagoula. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I would like to know something real good for psoriasis. I have severe psoriasis.
All right, you're not going to like what I tell you. I'm going to tell you to stop certain things. Get off all dairy and stay away from your grains for a while. In other words, that means the bread, the rice, the pastas, cereals. Get rid of all that. Those two food groups are usually one of the biggest causes for increase in the psoriasis.
And psoriasis is inflammatory
It's
too.
an inflammatory
so
process, right.
The fish oil is something that we use a lot for psoriasis, and it does help. And sometimes even we have a product called Liver Support and Detoxification, which does help detoxify, which does help with the psoriasis as well. So there's definitely, everybody's different with psoriasis, and we even have some topical things, but of course topical never fixes the problem. It just helps the symptoms. And we do have one called Psorima Cream and a Psorima Wash, because using soap that dries out that psoriasis makes it worse. So there's certain soaps and chemicals in soap that will make it worse.
All right, got a real quick call, one more. Deborah from Waveland. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I'd like to know, how do you develop polyps in your gallbladder?
In the gallbladder?
Yeah, they're
Yes.
I mean,
I don't know how it just happens. I mean, it's one of those things that, that gallbladder disease is caused from really bad diet for a long period of time. And that gallbladder kind of starts, having issues and things like polyps and
and
so
you
on.
can develop
stones.
polyps just like you can in your colon.
Right.
But it's one that I don't know. I mean, probably diet is the biggest reason you would
Biggest
get that.
thing. Long-term diet problems, right.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for your calls this morning and your questions. Next week.
Oh, the difference between health and health care.
Yeah. Some people get confused over, they think health is health care, and it's not. And we're going to talk about the difference.
Wow.
That's going to be
All
fun.
right. Get your notepads ready.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us. Our Monday Morning Live Edition, 896-0713. You can write that down, and remember you can call next week whenever we come on the air live at 9 a.m. next Monday.